Okay, Brian and Tay, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks a million.
Thank you for having us.
I'm super inspired by what you've been doing over there, and I really wanted, after meeting Brian over at our farm last year, I really wanted to tell your, or allow you to tell your story and share that with people, because it's super inspiring, and what you've done with your rooftop farm, but then now starting up a whole another operation. So I'd love to just go from the start and really hear your folks' journey, and maybe you could tell us a bit what we're looking at the Cork rooftop farm.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a photo taken of the rooftop from day one. So we live in the centre of Cork City. It's in the south of Ireland, and Ty used to live in the little green building you can see in the corner there, and my apartment is adjacent to this building also. And at the start of the pandemic, Ireland had a lockdown at the end of March, and it was a very strict lockdown, so it meant I had to close my wholesale flower business, and Ty unfortunately lost her job.
Yeah.
So we were both kind of at a loose end.
Nothing to do.
Nothing to do, and all day to do it. So
and a big roof.
Yeah, exactly. But we like a lot of people during the pandemic kind of turned to gardening. Like there's been a massive boom in garden centres and all the rest since this whole pandemic kicked off. And we were no different. We were kind of looking for an outlet outdoors that would be kind of enjoy
and have a fun.
Yeah, and grow some food for ourselves, and it seemed like a nice thing to do. And there's a little courtyard next to where I live, no bigger than, I'd say, kind of 10 meters by 10 meters. You wouldn't do a whole lot in there. Really be nice for one person to grow some bits, but Ty was looking out at the rooftop, and she saw, and she was like, why don't we do it there?
When I saw sorry.
Yeah.
But when I saw this space, I was like, oh my God. I really, really saw like a playground, like, oh my God, we can, have fun or some bath or have some big beds. And then it's funny because the layout in the beginning was completely different.
Oh yeah, we
changed everything every single day, watching your videos and searching about how the best way to do our beds. Yeah, it was fun.
We didn't really, so there was also a small little insignificant matter of, there was a for sale sign at the front of the building as well. So we knew that there was the potential that at any moment the building could be sold, and we'd have to move everything off the roof. So we didn't really want to put all this energy into it and then be told, a few months later, right lads, you have to get it off and you have to get rid of everything. So we tried to make it as mobile, what we were doing, as possible. So we kind of built everything on pallets. We built raised beds out of pallets, and 6x1s, and that's kind of how we started. Really, was these raised beds. It was simple. It did the job. We got about I think it was like 100 meters squared of beds made out of this, and then we got 20 cubic meters of soil dropped up onto the roof.
I think there's a slide of that, right?
Yeah. So yeah, that's after we got the soil up. So that was a bit. That was a bit of a crazy day.
It's a whole different level of logistics, right?
Yeah, and especially during a pandemic when you're trying to get a delivery of soil, but
what's our first letter?
Yeah, so you couldn't. There was basically certain businesses had to close. You couldn't get deliveries. You couldn't travel. But agriculture was seen as an essential business.
Yeah.
So that meant we registered then as a business, as a farm business. But I remember when we registered first as a farm, you had to put down your address on the company registration office thing, and we put down the address of the farm being in Cork city centre, and they were kind of going, I think there's a clerical error here or something, you know. And
are you sure?
yeah, so they sent it back, and they were like, no, this isn't correct. You're putting yourself under agriculture. And like, no, that's right. It's a farm in the city. And
I wonder, Brian, can we backtrack a little bit? So
Sure.
Whose roof is it, and how did you secure access to that?
So the building belongs to my father. It used to be the former premises of the wholesale flower business. So we traded out of there up until 2006. And yeah, we started trading there in the mid 80s. So it's kind of, so it's been there like that for, you know, the building has been like that since the 50s. So it's been around a long time. And it's 6,800 square feet, literally about 14 feet off kind of ground level. So it's not too high up that it's inaccessible, but it's just high enough that it's a pain, you know?
Yeah.
But and it causes kind of, you know, a few logistical, you know, issues. But it was still manageable. We could get, you know, a grab to drop the bags on the roof. It wasn't
super easy.
Yeah. But the first day we did it, actually, like, you can see over near the edge of that photo there, where the building with the copper roof, both our pallet trucks like broke down. So at one point we had about
Brian was going like this,
8 cubic, pumping,
and then I was
going nowhere.
Go.
I remember seeing that on Instagram. Because the piston wasn't working, so you had to keep pumping while you were moving.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. Like it was the most crazy, intense workout you could possibly imagine. So
hang on, look, I mean, this is a scenario that is applicable to people in urban areas all over the world. But how do you go about knowing the structural integrity of a roof and putting like 30 tons of earth and stuff on top?
Yeah. No, that was like definitely the most pertinent question at the start was, can we do this at all? So we got an engineer to review the roof. They took like core samples of the roof structure, and they looked at where the columns were, the makeup of them, and they were able to determine then the load that we could hold over different areas of the roof. So we knew then that we could do these raised beds with a certain depth of soil, and you had to have them spaced like a meter apart to have the load spread. And so for us, that's how we did it. But I mean, there's other ways we could have gone about it, but because we wanted to keep things mobile and kind of self-contained and tidy, we put them in these raised beds.
That's a real different set of design constraints to work on land.
Totally. Yeah. And, you know, at the time, I guess we were like, it has design flaws as well, because, I mean, you have all that heat radiating up from the roof and it just dries out the beds in a blink. So, you know, the soil really, we had very warm April, May and June in
really good summer
in Cork. So we found we didn't have an irrigation system or anything. We were just spending so much time watering things.
2 hours.
Yeah, it was all day for just such a small footprint of beds. But we were like, that was one kind of issue we had. So for this year, we're going to get put in irrigation for the summer, just to not have that on the rooftop anyway, not have that issue.
So just as a quick, because we'll talk about your new farm projects later on, but you'll be running the rooftop as well as that farm?
Sure, yeah. They're linked together. So I think a big thing that we found from having the rooftop farm was, you know, we're in the middle of a city centre, but there's a huge proportion of people living in urban areas who would love to be involved in agriculture or any form of growing. They don't have the space. You know, you can see behind those red brick buildings on the right hand side, there's big apartment blocks. There's, you know, hundreds of people living overlooking us. And to have a link between an urban kind of growing setup and a rural regenerative farm, I think can really create a powerful connection that we hope will, you know, get the message across to a larger proportion of people, because we've got, you know, a lot of farmers, their problem is they're in isolated areas. They're away from population centers, whereas we're literally smack bang on top of a population center.
Yeah, I can see you can draw people to the rooftop farm that would never come out to the farm initially.
Yeah, no, and when they come to the rooftop farm, then we can, you know, when we're allowed to travel between the two with people, I think there'll be a great opportunity there to have you know, symbiosis between the two farms in terms of education and informing people of why we're doing certain things, you know.
Yeah, I think that's why we started to document everything. I mean, taking photos, making videos, to create, as we create this relation with the plants, with our food, to show people they can do this as well on their own, even in big space as we had, or in small space, you know, in the back of their apartments, or even in the kitchen. You know, you can do whatever you want. You just need to think a little bit more, you know, and
I think that's a good point. I mean, like, even we're doing things from a scale that can be done with the microgreens. We're doing things that people with no garden space can do, but they can do it in their own home, or if they have very limited balcony space, they can maybe draw on some of the ideas that we've done on the rooftop and just maybe, you know, scale them to their scenario, their context, I guess.
Totally. One of the things that really impressed me when you were here, Brian, was we talked about at our farm, we have this self-imposed 50-kilometer selling radius because we live so isolated in a rural setting that people drive 50 kilometers to go to a restaurant for the evening. So that's quite close relatively for us. And then folks that are like colleagues in the UK that sell all their produce within 5 kilometers, it sounds like, wow, that's so easeful for delivery. And you're like, oh yeah, all my chefs are like a stone's throw off the roof.
Yeah.
No, it's
200 meters.
It's been amazing, actually, because even the whole way through all this pandemic, they've been closed, an awful lot of them, but they can still come visit our farm, and they just have to walk from their restaurant to us. So even while this whole thing has been, like, there's been a massive shutdown here in Ireland, like, we've been really building relationships with the restaurant owners around the city, and they come and they walk up the stairs, and then the doors open and they see this and they're like,
oh my God.
Yeah.
I love to see their face.
Yeah, it's like someone dropped a spaceship on top of a rooftop in the middle of the city or something. It's and you know, that's invaluable to have that access direct to people, and that's been huge for us.
How did you do that initial outreach work? I'm just going to play some of the slides in the background because I'm not sure of the order of them.
Yeah, no, I mean,
but comment on them if they're something particular you want to say. But
the one in the middle here, you can see this is how we move our beds around. So when we put the glass house, for example, or the greenhouse on the rooftop, that meant we had to move around a lot of the beds because to fit it in and to make proper spacings of the soil and have proper walkways and all the rest of it. So we had that flexibility to do that, and we were able to move them over to another side of the roof, and then, you know, integrate our railings into the bedding so that they were a kind of a weight to hold all our railings down along then. So we didn't have to invest in an expensive railing system. It was just, you know, 4x2s and just, you know, slap them onto the side of the raised beds, and that was what we used to get our railings around the perimeter. But in terms of, like, getting back to what you were saying there, in terms of outreach, I guess Instagram has been our primary channel to communicate our message. We literally from day one have been putting out content on Instagram, and that's opened unbelievable doors for us. Like, it's incredible how, I mean, we've literally, I don't think we've once contacted a newspaper or a radio or a TV show. They've just simply, it's happened organically through
the Instagram,
putting out our content on Instagram. and it's been unbelievable. One thing leads to another, and
you've been in magazines and TV programs, and it's caused a lot of buzz, right?
Yeah, no, it's been phenomenal. So there'd be, I suppose, one pretty big celebrity gardener here in Ireland called Dermot Gavin. He started following us really early days, and that kind of gave us the first kind of boost, I guess. And then some online blogs started to do articles about us locally and local newspapers. And then through Dermot Gavin, he did a TV show then during the summer about gardening, and he featured different kind of good news stories, I guess, that were happening during the pandemic. And that video then went viral online. It got like nearly 1.3 million views on the BBC Northern Ireland and BBC One Facebook platforms. So that like gave us another injection. So these things kind of build, and then
you're Cork celebrities now.
Well, I'm not sure about that, but
it's so funny because I don't feel like, oh my God, we are celebrities. I feel like some people realizing a dream, like doing something that we love, we really, really want to do for the rest of our lives. Like I don't see myself doing, for example, I'm a fashion designer and I love that, but I don't see myself coming back for that again. I want to use my skills, to improve our website, our page in the Instagram, or put some colors in our garden, or, that's how I see myself.
Yeah, but it's same for me, I guess. So like I've had my past is in fresh flowers. So my family business was fresh flowers, and that business is still running during all this, and it's just despite the lockdown is doing very well, and it's given me a lot of context in what a work-life situation should be, I guess, because the enjoyment and the fulfillment we get from doing the rooftop farm and doing now what we're doing in the out in the dairy farm in Coachford is it's incredible, really. It's very, very rewarding. It just it doesn't feel like you're going to work.
I want to ask you then, like, you were both working in the flower farm, is that right?
I was only working in the flowers. Ty wasn't working in the flowers. She was working in a restaurant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No, when you said you lost your job, it was just because of the lockdown as opposed to being in the flower business.
Yeah.
But then, did either of you have experience, or did you just start this up?
No.
This is a start.
Yeah.
I think it starts with the worry and concern about from where the food come from, and how they grow food.
There was a genuine.
From where?
Yeah. One thing that happened at the start of the pandemic was there was panic buying in supermarkets.
Yeah.
Because everyone went out and they bought, 100 packets of toilet roll and 100 packets of bread, and
this will save my life.
Yeah, and forgot about food. But, so that food security thing was in our heads a lot, and neither of us had I suppose my father would have had a homestead growing in our family home, and I grew up. We had 3/4 of an acre of glasshouses in my back garden where I grew up as well. So I would have had a bit of a link to growing, but not definitely not on a rooftop, and definitely not on scale. I didn't have a huge amount of knowledge. I didn't have any real experience. We were learning everything on the hoof. It was but that was what we loved about it, because you were learning kind of all the time, and it was very energizing to be learning all these things.
Well.
Yeah, and to be seeing it kind of work out, I guess. I mean, I still remember when Ty sowed her first seeds even, and I could hear her screaming, and I was like, why is she screaming? And it was just sheer excitement.
Yeah, right to the air. Like, oh my God, what's happening? And then we have a baby.
Yeah.
That's so fun. But then I guess, like, because I know, Brian, you were managing the floral business, right? Like you'd kind of taken over from your father. So I guess a lot of those skills have been very much transferable to starting up all this and like managing people and time resources and how to run things. Is that true to say?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And even from a perspective of just simple business operations, just setting up the company, when we needed to, for example, get a loan to buy the greenhouse and the grow towers, you know, having those connections and marketing, you know, all those things, they're very important. And yeah, I guess, but like it's been nice to apply it to a startup situation, because I suppose I came into the flower business and was well established, but it's a different buzz to be in a startup scenario where like every single cent is important, you know. And you know, I think it's probably helped my flower business, because you know, maybe in the flower business I wasn't focusing on that, you know, well, minding that penny's situation as much because we were so established. And I probably brought that nearly in from having the startup experience now into that side of the business, and that's been really good. And you know, likewise, the skills then from my experience in the flower business have definitely been transferable, even in terms of hiring and you know, all that kind of stuff.
And now he's teaching me.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so you've been doing I think the slides show this, but you've got a whole bunch of different things up there, bees, and we'll get to the grow towers later, but you're doing a lot of micros. Like, how are you selling to, is it going a lot to restaurants or is it to private people too? Like, how's that set up?
We were initially selling mainly to restaurants, but since the majority of them are kind of closed at the moment, since the new year, we've pivoted a lot to the public direct. So we're
the turn for retail, I'd say. Yeah,
we went more to retail, direct to consumer, and that's been great for a number of reasons. Like, we're lucky in that, as well as being in the city centre, there's actually a farmers market on our doorstep every Saturday. So like we're on a place
like
called
20 meters outside the back door.
Yeah. Very convenient.
Yeah. So it's a ready-made marketplace. So we have the premises on the ground floor, so we just literally open up the doors, put tables out, and just put our produce out there and sell it away. And it's been going amazingly well. You know, the profile that we built up through our social media channels has allowed us to basically have a you know, customers ready for, they were kind of chomping at the bit to be buying for us, really, you know.
Yeah, I think the market was very, very important for us, because it was nice to have this contact with people through the social media, but when they saw us like on person, I think the feeling,
became more real then, you know.
Yeah, was a completely different. And we started to sell more, to produce more because of this stage. So
yeah, it definitely drove us on, you know? And it's been great to have that interaction with our customers, and it's not just a digital interaction, I guess, which has been most of what we've had to date with the people that we've been meeting. But you know, and we've been, you know, really pleased with how things like Microgreens, which we would have thought would have been more restaurant orientated, have been going incredibly well direct to public. And that's really heartening, because it's a really good product for us to produce on the rooftop. You know, it's so scalable.
It's scalable in a small space, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that you got that greens harvester off us when you were over here, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. That was fun getting that home.
And you've made, I bet it's a very odd shaped package, but it looks like you've made your own, rather than using the quick stand, you've made your own little rail system.
Exactly. Yeah, we couldn't. I tried to get it from TerraTech, but they didn't have them in stock. And there's a an agent for Terratech in Ireland, Fruit Hill Farm, but they couldn't get them. But we've a new order in now with them for all our market garden tools. So hopefully we'll get to stand with that. This is a bit tricky because we can't really adjust it too well. And even this morning we were harvesting microgreens and we started using hemp mats as the medium, and they're a bit shallow in the tray, so you kind of have to lift them up. And you're just doing a bit of fiddling and adjusting. But the beauty of the hemp mats for us is we have some restaurants that want to have the microgreens live in their restaurant and self-harvest. So the hemp mat allows us to grow them for them and just hand over that way.
Because there's no soil, they can take it into a kitchen, etc. Yeah, that's awesome. How did you go about setting your pricing, and like how have you worked with that?
Like we kind of looked, I guess, at what was being done on the market itself, on the farmers market, what people were selling at. We could kind of see what the standards were, and we could see what standards were for microgreens, you know, what was going. And we could kind of, after a few weeks as well, we were kind of like the price we were getting on leafy greens, you know, we were generally doing it at about €3 a bag. We just tried to keep it simple really to start. Like we did €3 everything, and we kind of portioned accordingly. And that was easy for the customer, it was easy for us. And you know, you're not adding up lots of complicated things in your head when you're trying to serve lots of people, you know. And that kind of worked well. We've gone down, we do the punnets now, microgreens at €2.50 a punnet, which is still a great price for, I think, for both people. So, but like if we were to go, especially with the leafy greens that we have in our towers now, there's huge demand from direct to the customers for those leafy greens. But if we were to go to restaurants with those greens, you're cutting our margin in half, and it's very hard to justify at the moment when we're in startup mode, I guess. Maybe when when the market garden maybe broadens out a bit more, we could kind of incorporate that more, that offering to the restaurants. But for now, we're making a nice margin, but you know, the stuff is harvested like 20 meters away, only a few hours before they get it. So it's a kind of a nice novelty for people in the city, I guess.
What's the population in Cork?
So the greater city, like the city centre itself, would have about 100,000, but the greater Cork city area would be about 300,000.
Yeah, so it's an adequate sort of customer base that you don't need to wholesale anything, right?
No, we've more than a big enough market for direct to the end customer. So especially for what the volumes we're producing right now, anyway, you know. Now we'd kind of cemented that idea that it was going to be more direct to the customer, the produce from the tunnel.
So this is quite a imposing tunnel. Did you have any planning problems with sticking all this stuff on the roof in the middle of the city centre?
We're still classified as a temporary structure, so there wasn't any need for planning with it. It doesn't fall under those guidelines, thankfully. I don't think anyone from we've brought the city council up onto the roof. They've seen what we've done, and we've brought the city planners up there, and they've said nothing to us. So it wasn't really a case of asking for forgiveness. It was just like, here we are. This is what we've done, and it's been pretty public what we've been doing. So.
Do you think people appreciate it? Is that, I mean, it's something we've experienced here, is because there's so few younger people moving to rural areas to, you know, utilize the countryside or start small businesses. It feels like they've kind of gone out their way to support us. Do you have that kind of feeling that there's a general backing behind you?
Yeah, I think they really want us to allow it to be, integrated maybe into the city a bit, a bit more in terms of interaction with people and stuff. And they're, especially now, I keep coming back to the pandemic, but it's been very difficult for businesses to trade, and they've done a lot to support businesses in the city centre, whether that's a restaurant. And in terms of grants for, say, outdoor seating areas or upgrading those kind of areas. So they see definitely anything that positively contributes, I think, to the city and maybe draws people into the city is definitely a bonus, you know. So, and like, even we get text messages and photographs of people living around us, like thanking us that they are now looking at a nice area, a green,
it's an enriched environment, isn't it? I guess.
Yeah,
so
exactly. You know, it's making something out of a disused space. You know?
I wanted to ask you, because you've talked a bit about some of the pros and cons of the rooftop scenario, where obviously there's logistics of getting stuff up there, and you're talking about the soil drying up much quicker. But then on the plus side, you've got proximity to where you live and your market and customers. But also another thing I can see growing in containers here, we're seeing your tomatoes and your raised beds, is it must help eliminate a lot of disease problems, because you're growing in, like tomatoes, for example, you're growing in new soil each year. So I imagine there's some benefits in that regard.
Yeah, there's benefits, and I suppose, I mean, we did have pest pressure. We had a lot of trouble with aphids throughout the summer, and that was probably our primary issue. But we've no issue with slugs; like, they don't exist on our roof. You know? There's no like rabbits or any that kind of thing. We don't have voles. You know? But they're definitely bonus situations. But on the flip side, we can't really build soil biology to the same extent as somebody who'd have permanent beds. You know, if changing out those containers all the time. Now on the large containers we're adding compost, but at the same time it's just not the same, you know. So there's that aspect of it.
I think we could have more tomatoes.
Yeah, well, I think
if we were doing the tomatoes in the field, but because we were doing in a container, you know, their lives, I think.
Yeah, there was definitely issues with probably a bit of, they were probably a bit root bound by the end of the summer, to be honest. In some of those
because
containers,
of the limited size of.
We probably, if we could have done it again, maybe some sort of air pruning situation would have been good with them. We did have issues then with like even the irrigation system. It didn't work great, like, to be honest. We probably should have, but then that was just experience on our part. I think we probably should have put in probably just drip lines rather than wicks. The wicks were kind of problematic, you know.
Where's that water coming from? Like, are you just piping it up from the building? We have plans this year to harvest the rainwater, so just get IBCs and harvest it. But for now, it's just mains water coming up there. So that was one of the first things we got up on the rooftop, was access to water. Nice.
So that was pretty vital, I guess. These are our friendly.
Yeah.
So we built a little chicken coop on the rooftop, just, you know,
nice.
Have some eggs for ourselves, but also composting was a bit of an issue. You know, we had a little compost station, but literally I think we had it, and within 2 or 3 weeks, just rats became a big issue. Like,
you get no foxes up here, I guess.
No issue with foxes.
No.
But they're doing a great job for us. I mean, they've built some amount of fertile soil for us over the last year.
So what's that we're seeing on the right-hand side? Are you putting plant scraps in, letting them turn it into compost, basically? Yeah,
exactly. So any offcuts from the garden, we throw them in there. We put in our own home compostable waste. They're all going into them, and whatever doesn't get eaten and turned to manure by the hens is just scratched and burrowed into the compost that's already there. And
awesome.
We keep adding down kind of at this time of year when it's very wet, we're kind of adding a lot of carbon material down then to try and keep it from going anaerobic, and that's working pretty well. It's really top-notch fertile stuff. So we've been adding that then to our beds, and
Awesome.
it's kind of a closed loop, I guess, on the roof.
It's going to be, I'll ask you later about because I think I can understand that urge to want to start up in a rural, to start on land and scale things. But at the same time, I think there'll be some shocks to the system of like, oh, I have to drive my eggs all the way to town. And
yeah, definitely. Oh no, the driving issue is already kind of something that's probably, I'm definitely spending a lot of time commuting, and it's definitely probably an inefficient use of my time at the moment. But I have
How far away is the new farm?
It's a 35-minute drive from the rooftop.
So it's quite far.
Yeah, so you're talking an hour round trip, and it's not a great road really. It's a pretty rural, like it's out there in the countryside. But it's a beautiful area, and like the farmer that we've met is amazing. He's been unbelievable to us, really, and his whole family have been unbelievable, and the people that he is working with him have been.
It's like another family.
Yeah, it has been. Yeah.
When we are tired,
sure
we always cook something for us as well. So yeah, they're amazing.
Nice. I'm sure it will grow and develop into, as you build more people in the team maybe, and you'll have more division. And
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But let's come back to the new farm. I want to keep hearing about this farm. So you've got, I think there's slides of your bees as well, but tell us about this. What's Culture Night, and is this been part of the project, is to have this as a social space also?
Yeah, so at the end of the summer, they relaxed the rules. So it meant that you could have gatherings of a certain number of people, once socially distanced and sitting at tables and all this kind of stuff, no more than 6 to a table. And anyway, all these funny rules. But Culture Night is a night that they have every year in Cork, where, say, art galleries and theatres and museums and any kind of cultural building, or even pubs and restaurants, they throw concerts and gigs. So we decided we'd have a little traditional Irish music concert on the rooftop. So nice. We got a group to come and play music on the rooftop, and we invited some close family friends to attend, and it was a beautiful night. I mean, the weather was amazing, the setting was really enjoyable, and it was a great night for us because we'd all been kind of trapped in lockdown, kind of just frustration for months, and then to have this little bit of normality restored was beautiful, and it really gave us a glimpse of the potential for the rooftop to have as a social space as well.
Or dinner experience.
Yeah, it's something we want to have people come up,
restaurants and
totally, yeah.
I know you've got other bigger plans than that, perhaps, but we'll come to that at the end. But
so this night was lovely to kind of fulfill that in a kind of a small way. It was a really enjoyable night,
And then tell us about this whole thing. So this is in the same tunnel as the tomatoes. Is this an alternating system, or is this the finalized system?
This will be finalized now. So we had tomatoes in there before the towers arrived.
So what are these things?
Yeah.
No dig. Aerial, no dig.
Yeah, no dig.
No soil.
Yeah, no soil whatsoever. So it's an aeroponic system. So basically you see at the bottom of these towers, there's a tank at the bottom. That water has a nutrient solution in it that's pumped to the top of the tower, and the water trickles down and feeds the roots of the plants. So there's a couple of bits of it that we're probably not too happy about personally, and there's a couple of things that are amazing about it. So the good parts of it, you're growing a dense amount of produce in a very confined space. And it's a very clean way. You're using probably about 5% of the water that you do in a traditional soil-based agriculture.
It's kind of recycling the water around, right?
Correct, yeah. So we have the pumps on a timer system, and it comes on and for a few minutes and then turns off again. And they're grown as well under, you know, LEDs. So we're trying to maximize the growth cycle of the plants to have a pretty good output out of a very small space. Now, there's the things that we don't particularly like, I guess, are the nutrient solution that we're currently using is not organic, but we're trialing organic fertilizers. So when we were starting this system, there was templates of it working around the world. So we've taken that and we've run with that just to make sure we're getting a return on our investment. And then on the side, we're trialing these experimental approaches to using the same systems.
Yeah.
So,
I know someone's going to comment about you should add 1 million tilapia and all this.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
I think at this point is two trials. We want to change the rock wool, is the support for the plant in the tower, and we want to change the
nutrient solution.
So
we're
as well.
trialing a kind of a seaweed-based organic solution, and then there's another one that's been provided to us by a hydroponic grower. He gave us this solution that he's made, which is organic as well as just solid. So
nice.
We're trialing those, and instead of the rock wool, we're trialing growing in sheep's wool. So as a medium, so that's been quite positive, because sheep's wool is absolutely it's nearly a noose around sheep farmers' necks these days with the price that have just nosedived, you know. We can kind of.
That's super exciting. I've got a lot of questions about this then. So can you grow year round in Cork using this setup?
Yeah. So we're I mean, it's there's a few things. It's not a cheap way to grow, you know. It's definitely not a cheap way to grow. We're heating the greenhouse, we're lighting the greenhouse, and these towers are not they're not cheap, you know. So we when we kind of made a business plan for the farm, it was for the rooftop, it was important that we tried to maximize every square foot of our footprint, because, you know, if you were to say to someone like, go away and earn a living on, you know, less than a quarter of an acre of rooftop space growing produce, they kind of go, well, it's not possible. So we really had to go vertical to try and maximize the space. So the towers that would be on the right hand side there, they've got kind of micro ports that are more closely spaced, and you can fit 176 plants in those towers.
So what does that equate to in terms of a 75 centimeter veg bed? What would a tower like that equate to, would you guess?
Yeah, so
or calculate.
We're still trying to figure out. So there's certain, in terms of yield, for example, on one of the towers we can get about 3 kilos of rocket, for example. And that's not a bad return on that. That's when you're putting in a mature plug, and it takes about 2.5 weeks then to grow to the point where we harvest it.
Okay, so you've got like 2-3 week turnaround on.
Yeah, so
it's all focused on high value leafy greens, essentially.
It is, and that's where the market we have really is. People want those products from us.
Yeah, and the only alternative, I'm guessing, is those crappy artificial environment plastic bags coming from Holland or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, especially this time of year, you know, there's a few good organic growers around here doing things in tunnels that are growing nice assortments of leafy greens and Asian greens and things like that. And like Asian greens go really well, like bok choy and komatsuna are growing really well in the towers.
But it's just a different level of accessibility, right? Because whilst you've got market growers there, I mean, it's most people in city centre are going to a supermarket and buying packaged salad, right?
Yeah.
So it's a way into a much bigger market, but a market that aren't going to go out their way to find an organic grower and subscribe to them, whereas they can just come down the road and buy from you. So it's a different context, and it makes a lot of sense, I think.
Yeah, I mean, like in an ideal world, like we grow in soil, and you'd have all the benefits of growing in beautiful, rich, nutrient, full of microbe soil, but we don't have that luxury on the rooftop.
Yeah. So
we're in the city centre, and it's part of the food production solution. It's not the solution at all. Yeah. I mean, some people kind of tout it as the way all city centres are going to feed themselves into the future. It has to be kind of part of it, I think, but not the whole,
Tell us a bit about, like, it's cool. It's like looking into like some alien spaceship or something in a way.
Yeah.
But it's really attractive in some ways. I want to know a bit, like, are you willing to talk about the economy of this, like, as a setup? Like, it looks expensive, and what's the sort of return on investment you anticipate with that? Like, bearing in mind to all the viewers, like, you set this up just less than a year ago, right? Everything we're seeing has been happening over the last year, and the new farm that you're setting up as well.
Yeah, so this was funded by a loan. So I put in the deposit on the loan, obviously, and so if you're to break it down, the greenhouse costs 4,000 plus the VAT. The towers themselves cost just over 30,000 euros plus VAT. We don't need to include VAT, and then we recently got lighting, which was around another 5,000 euros, plus electricians coming in and making the place safe for all these the pumps and the lighting and all that. So all in, you're talking the bones of 50,000 euros. It's not a cheap system, as I said, and that's for 60 towers, which can grow about 4,500 plants growing in them at any one stage, and that's in an 80-meter squared space.
So what do you reckon in your sort of marketplace, what could that tunnel yield? You put 60k in?
Yeah.
And what could it output in throughout a year cycle, would you say?
So the goal, what we want to get it up to on a weekly basis, is churning out between 1,200 to 1,500 euros worth of produce. And we're not too far off that at this point.
So it's potentially 60, 70,000 euros of product could come out of that every year. Yeah. It seems like a good investment in that way.
Yeah, and I mean, once it's paid for, it's got a very long product life cycle. I mean, these towers are working in farms in the US, and some of the towers are 15 years old.
Yeah. So, no digging. No digging to do. I reckon you should get on Instagram and hook up Elon Musk's brother. He'll be well into it.
Oh yes, yeah, his container growing. Yeah, he's big into it. Yeah.
It's awesome. You guys have been working super, super hard. It reminds me of the silly things I used to do.
This is the sheep's wool now, so we can put a. Yeah.
What's the deal with this? Because this, like, as you were saying, the market for sheep's wool is terrible, and it's just probably oversaturated. Like, this is an easy resource to get hold of, I guess.
Yeah.
And do you have to treat it or do anything with it, or is it just raw wool? Or
so so I guess why we were looking to an alternative is because we're using a medium called rock wool, which some people might know of because rock wool is often used as insulation in houses, but it's also
a glass-based product, isn't it?
Yeah, it's basalt spun up to a very high heat, and they create this kind of foam mesh kind of and it's the primary medium used in all the Dutch grow houses for hydroponic tomatoes and lettuces and all this kind of stuff. It's the main way they grow in the Netherlands, and it's not biodegradable. So once you use it once, it's going into a skip, and it's a problem. So we were kind of like the other alternative is cocoa coir, and importing, there's no coconut trees in Ireland, so it doesn't make much sense in my head really to be importing cocoa coir to produce it to use it as a medium to grow food. So a lady who was interviewing us for radio, Suzanne Campbell, suggested to us that we try sheep's wool. She said that that she's seen a lot of people doing different things with it, as fertilizers and as mulches, but it could work potentially as a growing medium for us in the towers. And I said, oh, that's a great idea. So we started trying to figure out how to use the sheep's wool. We put out a call on Instagram, and we were literally flooded with people, sheep farmers, trying to throw their wool at us. And like, oh, great, I can empty my barn. And
so what's like in the middle shot, that's a regular grow tray, right? Is it the thing on the right-hand side you're using like you would grow aquatic plants in? That's what's going into the tower?
Correct. Yeah, that we don't use those ones now in the towers, but before, when we were trying the whole system out, they're the kind of plug holders, I guess, that we were using.
Right.
And in the middle is just a standard tray. So what we were doing was washing the wool in. We were giving it like 2 or 3 washes in boiling hot water to try and get out some of the, the
like lanolin,
the dirt really that would be in a sheep's wool, and then when it was wet and warm, we compacted it down into these trays to try and form it into little cubes that it would fit snugly into the tower slots. And this crop that you see here is rocket, and in the middle photo, that's it germinating after about 2 weeks. So it works perfectly as a medium to germinate the crops. And then really, once it goes into the tower, it's just about holding the root mass together. Yeah. And the plant then is fed through the water through the tower. And we had first test, we had a success. Now what did happen was, because there are certain there were certain elements to the sheep's wool that were getting into the water, so the pH of the water kind of fluctuated, but we're able to figure out that now it just needed further cleaning really, and we did more tests then, and that kind of fixed that issue. Mm-hmm. And so we're doing more trials with that now in the towers with different crops, seeing how it works with different crops. And if we can really, I guess, refine the processing part of the wool, then it could be a viable alternative to us to rock wool. Because, I mean, rock wool, for example, is costing us about €130 for 8 kgs of the rock wool. And at the moment, sheep's wool, I think, is selling for around 20 cents a kg to the farm. So it could potentially revive this a dying product, I guess,
Yeah, and it's good for your marketing. And just remind me again, the square meters of the tunnel.
It's 80 square meters, 16 by 5.
80 square meters. Because it's interesting for people to reflect on. Like, Ireland's a little bit different from England in that I think there's better possibility to sell good product for a better price. Like, England just seems behind the rest of Europe, it feels like, and it's a struggle. But Ireland seems to have a bit more developed scene there, and I'm just trying to equate it. So 80 square meter tunnel, you've got the potential there with a 60 grand investment to turn over more than that every year on 80 square meters, which is entirely manageable. I imagine you're just on just regular seeding and transplanting and harvesting cycles, and deliveries aren't very far away.
Yeah.
But how does that compare to market garden in the countryside? I would say you probably comparing that sort of income to like an acre of veg production in the market garden or something like that, right?
Yeah, and the big thing with the towers, I guess, is it's a fraction of the labor input, because you just, watering is taken care of, feeding is taken care of. It's
mostly self-sufficient.
we just have to go in and do light observation every day, to be honest, to make sure there's not a failure from a pump, or that there's just some strange bolting going on or something like that, because it gets too hot or it's too close to LEDs or something like that. They're the kind of teething issues that we commonly see.
What's the sort of cycle? You're basically pulling out the plug, or do you harvest and then come back and pull out the plugs?
There's
how do you turn it all around in a sort of standard way?
So crops like, say, rocket, Mizuna, mustard, we cut and come again. So we cut and we get nearly 3 cuts out of those. So you're getting probably 6 weeks of harvest out of them, out of one plug. And once they're done, then we straight away have a mature plant plug to slot back in. So I look at it like there's kind of similarities in a way in the principles of the paper plot system. That you're bringing on your plants to a certain stage of maturity, that when they go in, they don't need to take that long to get to harvest point. And that's kind of been the case. So, and that's really been the trick for us, is to figure out that cycling. And
so are you doing those starts in the lean-to greenhouse that you have, and then you transfer them over here? Yeah,
we were starting that now, but the microgreens has kind of started to increase, so that's taking over, I guess, inside there. And we've put a few Dutch trolleys now inside in the greenhouse, so we've got layered shelves where we have the lighting inside there, so the plugs are coming along now inside there. And the plan we have then is to kind of incorporate shelving systems into the alleyways at the sides of the tunnel, that literally you'll take out your plugs and behind you will be the tray, and you just go straight into the tower then. So you'll know that when you empty a tower, your tray is right behind you. You can see it coming on, and it'll kind of nearly by default, you'll know what the next stage is to do,
Sure. So say the system is all up and running, you've ironed out the kinks, everything's groovy. How many human hours is it to manage the turnovers, the seeding, the harvesting, and walking down the stairs to sell it?
Yeah, so if we break it down, I guess seeding is probably around 3 to 4 hours a week maybe. Now we'll definitely try and cut that down with maybe proper seeding efficiencies there. Observation is probably about 2.5 hours a week. And then you've got harvesting is taking us the best part of a day. So
3 hours
to harvest and process the towers. So if you add all that for 2 people, so if you add all that up, you're probably talking 8, 16 to, the bones of 20 to 25 hours a week to manage that.
That sounds all right, doesn't it?
Yeah. No, it's not too bad.
I want to know about there's 2 things. One, I could tell you, Bruno at Green Tech Tools.
Yeah.
He's developing these new egg boxes that we're basically funding him to do that, so that we can prototype it. Well, if they work, then he'll be up for making them for people, and we just need to test it out. But they look amazing. Yeah. But he's making drop seeders, and he can make them for whatever trays you have. If you can give him dimensions, he'll just make you like a paper pot drop seeder.
Yeah. Oh, well, that would be brilliant.
Yeah, that'll save you loads of time.
Totally, because we're still tap. And
you want to get rid of that, because there's such a density of plants, and you're cycling them maybe quite a lot at the same time, right? So you're doing a lot of seeding at the same time. So definitely get a drop seeder.
I'll give him an email. That sounds cool.
And then I just wanted to, just because it might be less obvious for people listening in, so you've got 2 of these with a path in between, is that right? Like, are the pumps and things kind of tucked away so that you can access one side at least, or how do you actually move harvest? How do you get through when you're harvesting, etc.?
We have one center lane, which is a bit clunky because we have these wet boxes for the power sources, I guess. But the plan is to build a kind of a floor above all that. And at the sides, we have side alleys that we can fit little kind of hand trolleys nearly, and that's where we
Oh, nice.
we can go up and down there. And you can, the beauty of the towers is you can kind of spin them around, so you can harvest one side, give it a spin around, and then you can harvest the other side. And so from these alleys you can access all the produce to harvest.
Oh, you should look at like some of those greenhouse rail systems, so you could have just carts that you can.
That would be class.
That's super nice.
That would be brilliant.
Super interesting.
Yeah, but it's we definitely need to figure out efficient ways to do the harvest. It's probably taking us a bit too long now, and I think.
How are they doing it on big versions of this? Is it just done by hand cutting, or
not too dissimilar to what we're doing, to be honest? I've seen some fellas coming out with, you know, like the serrated kind of automatic cutters, like that you'd cut a chicken with or something, or a roast, you know. That they'd come up and kind of go
What
through.
about those little battery-powered hedge trimmers some people use for microgreens, only about this wide, like a hair cutter, like a sheep shearing hair cutter?
Yeah, it's, I think some sort of like what we had in mind was something that would, like, that you could cut it and then you'd have maybe, like, you know, when they do say olive trees or something like that, they put a net around the bottom of the tree and they just give it a shake. So if we had some kind of
like
net,
an umbrella that opens out, and
and then we didn't have to think then about, you just go up and you just
like cutting kebabs or something.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds like you should connect with Bruno, because he's probably very busy, but he's very good at thinking about these things.
That would be, any efficiency with harvesting would be brilliant, because it's, you know, it's still a bit of a clunky situation right now.
Yeah, but it sounds like you will find a solution. I mean, you know, you're going into the second year of it, right? So it's you've got time for that. Yeah, and you've got a wildflower meadow and honeybees up there too.
Yeah. So like we I suppose we wanted the rooftop to look pretty, and you know, there was no biodiversity up there whatsoever when we started. It was just builders' waste and rubble and pallets, and as soon as we laid down this meadow, it was just bee central, you know. And that was brilliant to see. That was like they just absolutely flooded the place. And we got our hive, so there's a couple of like urban beekeepers, and we got in touch with two of them in particular, and they've been helping us to learn about beekeeping, and they helped us get our first hive. And it's been like, bees are so interesting. Like it's a fascinating thing.
Bee word.
Yeah, and so we're looking forward to our first honey this summer.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's really cool.
We have a new house for them as well.
Yeah, I'm kind of one for a boy's toy. So I did get this thing called a flow hive. So it's one of these new generation of beehives, I guess, where the bees don't make the honeycomb. It's kind of this plastic one that they fill in the gap, and then you turn a lever and crack that gap that was filled by the bees, and that allows the honey to just drain down and come out a tube and straight into a jar. So it's we'll see how that goes. So that'll be for this year now. That'll be another tester for us.
Nice.
Yeah.
Super nice. So look, you came, I don't know when you set this up, but you came to our course, the sort of farm scale regenerative ag design course last year, and I had the feeling it had quite a big impact on you. Is that anything to say about that?
Definitely.
Yeah, Ty will attest to that. I mean, it opened my eyes and my mind enormously. I mean, I guess, you know, you dive into, like, you obviously have a lot of material online, and we both dived into a lot of that, and then you go up and you see it and you're kind of going, wow.
Yeah.
And when I came home, I was like, okay, we have the rooftop, but like we have to do something. We just have to. we were really lucky to through the rooftop farm to meet a farmer by the name of Ger Buckley, and he saw what we were doing on the rooftop, and he asked to come and have a look around and see what we were at. And it was literally the week before I travelled to Sweden, actually, and he came up and he had a look, and you know, we didn't think much more of it than that, really. You know, we got on well and he was kind of curious about what we were doing, and you know, found it very interesting. And when I got back from Sweden, we stayed in touch, and we went out and we visited his farm, and you could see that he was a different kind of farmer. You know, he didn't have the blinkers on. He was very open-minded, very humble guy. You know, I could ask him the stupidest question about dairy farming, and he wouldn't, you know, he wouldn't mind. He'd answer you sincerely and genuinely, and he wanted to educate us and to help us in our knowledge in agriculture. And that was really, you know, positive. That was hugely positive for both of us, yeah. And so we kind of built this relationship then, I guess, with Ger, and he encouraged me then to go to apply for the Nuffield scholarship, which I did, and he's a Nuffield scholar himself. And then I was lucky enough to get the Nuffield scholarship, so something to look forward to. Tell
us what that is in a nutshell, because a lot of listeners won't know from outside the UK.
So the Nuffield Trust is kind of a trust that looks for people who may be, you know, future leaders in agriculture, I guess. And there's an interview process you go through to get this scholarship, which gives you a bursary to travel to different farms and different places around the world, which would tie in with your chosen topic. So the goal of it being to fuel your knowledge and bring it back to your home setting, and write a report about what you learned and put it into practice, and, you know, inform the Nuffield community and the greater farming community about what you're doing. And so my chosen topic was, you know, to reconnect people in an urban environment with rural producers through having this kind of urban setting. So using regenerative agricultural means. So that's kind of what was my interest. And, you know, I guess it was a big leap on the part of the Nuffield Trust to choose me, because I, you know, not in agriculture, I guess, you know, a wet week, like, really. But they could see, I guess, the passion and, you know, my drive for what we're doing, I guess.
Yeah, I think the point was this, you know, I said for Brian once, and then I think what make people believe in you is not how many years you are doing something, or, you know, I think is that your passion, you know, and what is the output you have to add in that, you know. And I think we can see clearly, you know, how good he is in management, you know. And I'm
it was I to be honest, when I went for it, I was like, there's not a hope in hell, you know, but I'll give it my best go, because Ger had confidence in me to do it, and in fairness to him, he put me in touch with people to prepare well for it, and when I got it, I was over the moon. And it's, you know,
that's amazing.
Yeah, so
well, congratulations. It's super cool. And what is the setting of this farm? Is this a portion of the dairy farm?
This is basically, it's a family farm. It's been in the family for 100 years or so, and this was the old homestead plot. So they used to grow vegetables here.
Your family?
No, Ger Buckley's family.
Okay. So it's a part of his estate that they're not using, basically.
Correct. Yeah, it's kind of.
Look, that's how you treat your pallet trucks out in Ireland. That's why they don't work.
Yeah, no, it's becoming. It's going back to soil. So
work it out.
Yeah. No, but it's.
So
yeah.
what is it? How big is it, and what's the agreement? Are you got a lease on this, or like what? How big is it? What have you got there to start with?
Yeah, it's about 3/4 of an acre, and it's a tidy size for us to start with, and so you can see here in this photo, it's surrounded by trees. These are all kind of landies.
Well, I seen you've been chopping a lot of trees down to get access for light, right?
Yeah, light, and also they weren't in good condition. They were quite unhealthy. A lot of them were falling down and are kind of still falling down of their own volition. But they were overhanging as well quite a bit and quite dangerous in places. So we got them cut down. I think it was a sad enough day for Ger when he saw them coming down, because it had been a kind of part of the landscape for quite a while. But we do fully intend to, I mean, all the wood chip has gone straight into our market garden. So we were really, it's gone straight back onto that plot, I guess, in another way. But it opened up the space massively for us. So I actually this little frame, I saw Mark doing this in Norway when he was setting out his there before Christmas. He made a little wooden frame, and we just used that template the whole way along. We rolled cardboard out over the whole
place. So you're flipping it over and filling it to form a bed that you can fill wood chips in between.
Yeah, exactly. So we don't need to do measuring out every time. We just literally flip it, and there's where it lands is pretty much dead on where we need to have the space. So we had it down to a bit of a knack by the end. We got it's a compost from a compost company up near Dublin. They're in County Kildare, I think. But we went through a lot of compost, a lot of compost. About over 200 cubic meters.
Okay. How many beds? These are 10-meter beds, right?
Yeah, we've done to date.
130?
About 135 we're at. Yeah.
You guys are crazy. So this is this spring you've been doing this?
Yeah. We started it the first weekend of November.
Yeah.
And we had it done pretty much by the first week of January. We were doing it at weekends because I have the flower business obviously going during the week as well, and we have the rooftop farm going. So it was kind of Saturday and Sundays we were doing this, and you couldn't really get many people. The first weekend we had a few volunteers out, but then they kicked in more restrictions, so we couldn't really do that anymore.
I think because it was raining as well, and then some people don't think it's fun. Don't think it's fun, go out in a piece of rain to take the wheelbarrow and pour some compost.
That doesn't sound very Irish.
We got through it. I think it took us about 2 months at weekends doing it to get through everything. And
that's awesome. But that's a lot of, you've really put it thick. And so I saw you had like some docks and stuff coming back through on one of your Insta posts. Like, how's that been? Because you're straight on old pasture with perennials and stuff, aren't you?
Yeah, I'd say there's a lot of weed roots still in the soil that are just pretty determined, and there's probably a bit of compaction going down. It was like we were trying our best not to damage the soil layer, but you can see the weather, it wasn't good. So we were putting wheelbarrows, we were probably walking over a lot. So there's probably a bit of compaction going on, maybe underneath that compost and wood chip layer. But look, we'll get the broad forks out and get going on that in the spring.
It will change quickly. But that's I wasn't sure what this is. This a little video?
Yeah, we got a drone video going of the area.
Of the new farm. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so this is his dairy farm, yes, and this is aerial footage of. So we've added an extra block of beds since, and we've extra 2 blocks of beds actually, and
the glass house as well.
Yeah, so we started building a glass house. So Jared, the farmer, he salvaged a glass house from a school nearby, and he had it in his shed, and me being me said, yeah, we'll put that up, not a bother.
Ooh.
And yeah, it's a pretty big job to put up now.
We love challenge, isn't it?
So the lockdown's been quite productive for you folks, hasn't it? It's that's a lot of work.
Yeah, no, it's I mean, I guess we're fortunate in that it's probably one of the only industries that you can just get stuck into. You know, if we were in any other area of business, I think it would have put an end to it. But being in farming or agriculture, you can operate. You know, so it's allowed us to.
What's this?
I don't know. Some crazy guy designed it. But yeah, so we started building this last week.
We have a new home.
Yeah, so nearly there
is
with
this
it.
to go on the same land, like around the gardens, or is there other land you can use there?
Yeah.
It goes just to the land behind of the market garden.
Yeah,
like an open pasture there. Yeah,
one of the paddocks that he uses for his dairy herd. So it's a 6-acre paddock, and he's planted mixed swards down there, so it's got a mixed species field. So I suppose, as he's a conventional dairy farmer, and he is putting down inorganic fertilizers on his pastures to drive the grass growth, and he doesn't want to continue on that road. You can see where it will eventually bring him. And
so
he wants
in come the chickens.
In come the chickens. Yeah. So we're running a trial on that pasture for this year, whereby the hens are going to come in, and it'll take them about 60 days to go around that pasture, moved every day. And
you'll probably, because it's so wet there, you'll probably have to keep them off the ground in the winter months.
Yeah, we will. Yeah. We have a polytunnel there that we can use, so we'll utilize that probably during the winter. Excuse me, for the hens. And so we're gonna. Yeah, so the goal is for this year to use it as a trial. He'll come in there then with his dairy herd twice during that 60-day period as well. It's not following behind, but we can't. It's not really practical on a 200-acre farm to be driving this thing around. So, but it will do it in a different way, I guess. But I think it'll still have huge impact on the pasture. You know?
Yeah, and it's amazing that he's open to this process. You know, and it's that will convince him if he sees the results in the grass, which is just about timing, isn't it, really? Yeah,
there's a few things. I mean, it needs to make sense in that the yield has to be there for the grass in terms of what's available to his dairy herd coming in, and also the output from the milk then needs to be equally as on a par with the rest of his setup. You know? So we're also looking at then trying to diversify the way he goes to market, potentially, that we might sell some of his milk. Maybe we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, that sounds a really good idea. And that's like it's such a useful endeavor, because there's so many farmers in that position that if you find a appropriate management, then you can A, scale it if necessary, and B, spread that to a lot of other, for young people that want to have access to land that don't have the capital to buy farmland, it's a dream. Yeah. And for farmers wanting to transition, it's also super beneficial.
Yeah, for us to have this opportunity in year one is unbelievable. I mean,
you guys are crazy. How?
Yeah.
So how are you going to manage? Are you going to be? So you got a 25-minute drive back and forth. Are you going to be going to this farm primarily for most of the day, and then coming back and checking up on the rooftop?
Yeah. So this will definitely be where probably the core of our production will be anyway for the summer months, and it will, I see, ultimately it'll probably be the main revenue driver for the rooftop farm in terms of produce, and having those, if we're getting 400 hens once they arrive within a few weeks, we're going to have a nice amount of eggs available to sell. So that'll drive on.
We always speed it up a little bit more, our sales.
Yeah, so there's a market there for them. Like we've literally been selling the eggs.
Will you be bringing them to the rooftop, as it were, and then using the channels you've already built up to?
Yeah, we'll definitely utilize that, and I think there'll be, the local community, I guess, will, like say, eventually buy in. It's in a rural area. They don't really know us. They know Ger, but they don't really know us yet. So, and with the lockdown, it's a bit more difficult to kind of interact in that regard in a rural setting. So I think that'll probably take a bit more time to maybe get access to that local market where the market garden is based. But definitely having the ready-made market here already in the city centre, that's going to allow us to drive on all these enterprises.
Yeah, and you've got your customer base lined up ready. It sounds like you don't need to do really any particularly different marketing or anything like that, really.
No. So I mean, just really kind of keep doing what we're doing, and if we're adding, enterprises to the whole collective, it's just kind of adding to the revenue stream. So it's the more layers we have to it, the better. So cool. Here we've got, you can see on the right here, there's a little photo of Ty standing on top of all the manure produced by the dairy herd. So he's mixing that with straw. So there's literally a shed in his farm with about 250 cubic meters of this material. So,
is that something you can then use from now on as your main bed material?
Definitely. It needs more, it needs more turning. It needs more probably care to how we do it, how we process that manure. But it's it's definitely, and even for Ger, for his pasture, to be spreading good compost out in his pasture instead of fertilizer, that's going to be a goal. So we're going to spread compost out in the mixed sward this spring, and try and boost the biology in the ground, and maybe give it a spray with compost tea as well. So we're going to really try and drive that on using what's available on the farm, and I think that's good, because it's like a lot of farmers look at it as like, oh, tricky, I have to get this stuff out of here, or what do I do with it? It's nearly a thorn in their side, when really it could become the backbone of their farm if they really used it properly.
Yeah, for sure. So what's next? I know you've got other plans. What's this that we're looking at? Yeah,
so because we didn't think we were busy enough, we decided we'd add this layer onto the whole thing. No, so basically the building on the ground floor of the rooftop farm is also owned by my father, and the front premises lead onto one of the main trading streets in Cork, and it's empty at the moment. So we really wanted to allow public access onto the rooftop. We wanted to make it a place that people can come and visit and see it and interact with, and also buy the produce and buy plants and
and have a coffee.
Or if they want to have a meal.
Sounds fantastic.
Yeah, so we got a.
So you took another loan.
Yeah, well, we got an architect to help us out, and they're amazing, and they drew up these plans and concepts, and like, I don't know when exactly we'll start on these. It's not something I'm going to rush into now. It's just not possible. But
I think this the idea to have a coffee shop and to have a shop including to the rooftop was because we were doing tours, and then we kind of thought, oh my God, maybe if we are doing coffee shop, and put our produce in exposure.
Totally, everyone would stop in there.
Yeah, it's a nice space up there. It's got a nice aspect, so the sun kind of filters around all day long. It's quite nice in that regard. So it's a lovely place to sit and enjoy and relax. And you can see the other plant. How can I say this? Yeah.
You can come from one door.
Yeah, so it allows us to give access to people up onto the rooftop from this, and they can come back through another area. So it's
like a different ambience.
Yeah.
You go through the rooftop, you kind of see the whole rooftop and see what we are doing and the techniques and see the towers, and you come up from the other.
Yeah, you come down a different way, so you're a small bit discombobulated going up and coming down, but that's kind of part of it, I guess.
Yeah,
it's like a journey through the space.
Story. Yeah.
So I think it'll be cool to get.
And what's your father say about the whole thing? Is he's not selling the building now, or is he just not found a buyer?
No.
Or
well, he's not talking about this actually.
Well, I've had conversations with him about it. All right, I'm like, I hope to God he doesn't. But it's not for sale, really. No. But I think he can see how it's changed my life and Ty's life, and really, there's a future there for this building, and I don't think it's going to be going anywhere anytime soon.
Maybe we can buy one day.
Yeah, maybe one day.
Just gotta keep those egg counts high and
get a mobile in every single one of Joe's paddocks, maybe. Yeah, and we might get
super cool. So look, this is where people can find you. Like, where are good places? It's mainly Instagram for people to.
Yeah, that's our main channel that we get. We go through. We have Instagram, we have Facebook, and we have
websites here. Rooftopfarm.ie.
Yeah, so we have an e-commerce site, so people. So we set up a CSA for the market.
You brush up quite nice, Brian. Look at you on the magazine covers.
when I don't have COVID hair going on. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
But,
big days.
Yeah. So we so it's been good to get. We can market through that, through all these channels, and it's been how we've opened every door that's been opened by one of these has led to another 2 or 3 opening for us. So it's been amazing in that regard.
Yeah. And then it's so beautiful how food connects people. Like thinking about the dinners with your friends and family, and growing your own food, and all those people we have meeting, like George, you as well, and how our brains, have been working, through this. Oh, it's amazing, and now feeding another families, with our produce, with our love as well, because every single seeds is like, oh my God, let's think how we can boost them and help them to grow well. And it's so beautiful, so beautiful.
What an amazing story, you folks. It's super inspiring. I'm super glad you came and gave us your time to talk with everyone. I think it'd be great to hear people's comments and reflections in the comments below, and go and follow Cork Rooftop Farm. I'm super excited to see your progress this year. I'll be watching as always, and be in touch if you need any thoughts or whatever with the new learning curve with your hens, etc. I'm very impressed. It's amazing what you've done in such a short space of time, and it's great the attitude that you bring to it. And thanks so much for sharing, folks.
Cheers. Thanks, Richard.
Thank you. And come to visit us.
Well, I hope you folks found that inspiring, and I just love what these guys are up to. It's an amazing achievement and such passion and dedication to do all that in such a short space of time. Having built up Ridgedale so quickly, I know what it takes to do that, and it's going to be amazing to follow and watch their progress. And all of our listings for our trainings on the farm this year are up on our website at ridgedalepermaculture.com. If you want to come, get inspired, get informed, get ready to start up your own business, then come join us for one of our epic trainings. And if you like this kind of content, we've got over 100 hours of footage recorded on the Farm Like a Hero experience, as well as the accompanying ebook where the farmers that we spoke to, over 60 farmers around Europe, telling similar stories but in their own words in the ebook. Then you can see that all at Farm Like a Hero. Catch you in a video soon.